Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. So I'm actually busy at work at the moment and I literally just came outside and I was wondering why all these insects were flying past me, and today is actually the day that the ants are having their nuptial flight. It's the next day, and yesterday was actually quite an exciting day. I have all of my queens here in these two little boxes. I caught, once again, way too many than I actually can keep. I only have 4 test tubes that I can actually fill up, and I think I have roughly around about 10 queens, so I always do it, but oh well. Before I take the queens out of the boxes and start rehousing them in the test tube, I do need to still prepare just a few little things. You guys might be wondering why I have the tinfoil here, and this is basically, let me show you. I'll bring you guys a little bit closer. So the tinfoil I'm going to be using as a little stand for the test tubes. Since the test tubes obviously just like to roll around, I want to try and keep them, well, as steady as possible. The queens are obviously going to be falling around if the test tube rolls. So I just take some tinfoil. Now I folded it up a few times, and I'm going to do it again and again, and basically create somewhat of a little bit of a test tube holder. I don't think I took enough. No, I might have enough tinfoil. But yeah, something like that. It's just very, very simple. It'll just keep the test tubes from rolling away on me, and it'll just keep the queens in a constant, perfect position. I'm going to create another little one. I have still one more little test tube, and I actually have a test tube of a queen that I actually caught a few weeks ago already. I think it's a different species to the queens that I've actually caught now. So let me bring her over and I'm going to show you guys. Okay, so this here is the other ant queen that I caught a few weeks ago. Now, this is what a test tube setup looks like. You got your water on the one side, a cotton wool plug that basically keeps the water to one side. And this also obviously is completely soaked up with water. It keeps the nest nice and humid, and it'll give the ant queen, well, a drink of water whenever she needs it. And another cotton wool bud at the entrance just to let air in and out. Plus that means that the queen obviously can't escape. But let's try and get a little bit closer on the queen ant. I hope my camera focuses. So there we go. There's the queen with her batch of eggs inside the founding chamber of the test tube. And she has laid quite a few eggs already. She's going to raise the eggs to become larvae. The larvae are going to pupate at some point, and the first workers will only come along in a few months, and she's going to be feeding the larvae and her first workers with her liquefied wing muscles. This queen here has not taken off her wings yet, so it could be bad, it could be good. One never actually really knows. Most of the queens, as mentioned, take off their wings, so she could be fertile, she also could be unfertile, and just by instinct started laying eggs that will unfortunately just never develop into larvae, but we will have to see. Anyways, I'm going to close her up again with the little cover, and I'm going to be putting her aside, and then we are going to be setting up the other test tubes for the queens that I actually caught yesterday. I'm going to show you guys how to set up a test tube for a queen ant, and it is extremely simple. Now all you need is some water, some cotton wool, and, well, anything that can basically go and push the cotton wool down into the test tube. It can be a chopstick like I have, or it can also just be a knife or a stick or anything like that, though you do want to work as hygienically as possible. Anything that could contaminate the founding chamber or anything that doesn't belong into the founding chamber can lead to mold and fungus, and mold and fungus will kill the colony because it will attack the brood, since obviously the humidity in the founding chamber is going to be extremely high. Now, before I actually started off this video, I washed my hands quite thoroughly, and I'm going to be using a chopstick to press down the cotton wool into the founding chamber and try to not touch the cotton wool too much, and obviously try to be as clean as possible. For the water that I'm going to be adding to the test tube, I'm going to be using distilled water, since using distilled water throughout the time that I've been doing this has always given me the best results. You can use tap water, but obviously tap water is still not perfectly clean. If you don't have distilled water on hand, tap water will work also just fine. You'll just have to keep an eye out on the test tube from time to time and see if there's any mold or fungus growing. But I would say let's start. Now I'm just going to use a syringe to fill it up with some distilled water. Now the founding chamber does not need to be large at all. The smaller the better, since the humidity is obviously going to be greater in a smaller space. And since the queen is also very, very small and it's going to take a few months until she actually raises her first workers, it does not need to be large. So I'm still going to add a little bit of water, roughly till about there. And then I'm just going to take a cotton wool bud. Now I have a piece right here inside the other test tube, and just take a nice big piece of cotton wood that'll fit snugly into the test tube. And then with one swift motion, basically just press down. Give it a little bit of a tap until the water level starts reaching the cotton wool end. And there we go. The water is going to stay in the test tube and the founding chamber is almost done. Now I just grab another piece of cotton wool, roll it up a little bit and make sure that it fits snugly into the entrance. And that is it. That's all the space that the queen is going to be needing. It's around about the thickness of my thumb, and she's going to feel absolutely at home in this test tube. It's going to be nice and humid for her to lay her first batch of eggs. And I'm going to do the rest of the test tubes now quickly. There we go, the test tubes are done, the founding chambers are ready. I'm gonna bring the queens over and get you guys a little bit closer. And yeah, that's basically it. Here are the queen ants. Now I literally had no other containers last night at work except for my safety earplug containers. But I put a little piece of toilet paper inside of it that I just sprinkled with some water just to keep the container humid and so that the ants have a little bit of something to drink. And there are the queens. There are actually also two kings inside this container as well. Now the kings were still attached to the queens when I caught them, which is a very good sign, meaning that the queens are definitely fertilized. But I'm gonna take out a little piece of tissue paper, and there you guys can see there are two more queens. Now I'm gonna grab this little king right here. I hope you guys can see him. I hope it focuses. But yeah, the kings are absolutely tiny compared to the queens. And yeah, I was completely wrong. These ants are definitely running all over the glass as they please. So I'm going to try and be quick and add the queens to the test tube. The best way that I found to basically catch queens is just with a cotton earbud. They can hold onto it pretty well. You can manipulate them into the test tubes quite easily. And there we go. Just picked up a queen very, very quickly. I'm just going to flick her into the test tube and plug up the hole. And there we go. First test tube is done, queen inside and in her founding chamber. As you guys can see there's the queen's wings. They have ripped their wings off overnight, which is a very good sign, meaning that they are fertile and no longer need their wings. Now, the kings, unfortunately, are going to pass away over time. They fulfilled their duty, as mentioned, so that these guys are actually still alive is actually quite impressive. But yeah, they are minuscule compared to the queens and look like tiny little wasps, since ants are actually from the wasp family. Let's continue. I'm just going to keep an eye on this guy. I still have two more queens underneath the tissue paper. We're going to put them into the bigger test tubes. So there we go. 3 queens have a new home, and I still have 1 free test tube. Now, unfortunately, I just couldn't find any test tubes this morning when I went to town. So I only have space for 1 more queen, and I still have at least, I think, 7 in this bucket right here. So I'm going to choose 1 queen ant and give her the test tube. The rest of the queens I'm going to go and release out in the yard. The weather is actually quite good, and hopefully I'm going to find a good place for them to start their own little chambers in the wild and hopefully have success. But let me open up the box here. and I'll show you guys. Overnight, basically almost all of the queens have ripped off their wings. One of the queens is still running around with her wings attached. I'm not going to be taking her and adding her to a test tube, since she is maybe not fertile. Then again, one never knows. Though I'm going to take my test tube and I'm going to go look around and see which one of the queen ants is the thickest. I'm going to close off the box again, get my test tube, and as you guys can see, the queen ant is already running for her life. Flick her into the test tube and close off the hole. So there we go, 4 new queens in the test tubes and founding chambers. The other queens I already took outside and tried to place them in places where there might be a suitable nest site. But unfortunately in the wild, the success rate of queens that are actually going to survive their first year, raise their first workers, and actually to start a colony is extremely slim. There are most probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of ants throughout a single country that take flight once a year for their annual nuptial flight. And unfortunately, I would guess, maybe I'm even wrong, but 1% of those queen ants are going to survive. So the chance of survival is extremely slim. But yes, in the test tubes, the chances are obviously increased dramatically. So hopefully these 4 queens are going to lay eggs in the next few days, and slowly over the next coming weeks, they're going to be raising their first young. But I'm going to put them aside in a, well, warm and dark place, and I'm just going to leave them there for a few weeks. So I would say in about 2 weeks, I'm going to have another checkup on them. And until then, it's basically just a waiting game. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a short one and, well, nothing really exciting. But yeah, if you guys liked the video, obviously leave a like and a comment down below, and subscribe and hit the notification bell. It would help the channel out quite a lot. So yes, that is it for today. I'm going to put the queens aside. I'm going to get ready for work, and I would say I'll catch you guys in the next one.